So it's my pleasure to introduce multi-time BVC talent, Eric Rosenfeld. Eric.
Great, thank you, Gator. Thank you, Gator. Thanks, everyone. Who had a great lunch today? It's awesome. Aaron, and Brian, and Edco do a first-class job. Thank you for all the work that goes into this. Again, I'm Eric Rosenfeld with the Oregon Venture Fund. I'm here today with Julianne Brands, John Maroney, and Matt Compton, and about 20 or more of our investors. And we really appreciate the great hospitality and being able to contribute to this. How many of you, this is their first Ben Venture Conference? Very cool, that's great, almost half. How many of you were here last year? Okay, that's good, like over a third. So those of you who were here last year will understand that this year I decided to dress as Julianne, and as me. So I'm dressing as Julianne, dressing as me today. So to dispel any confusion why I am actually dressed as I am today. So how many of you are actually residents of this beautiful place called Bend? All right, so that's about 2/3 of you. And someone should take a picture because to see that many Bend residents inside on a sunny Friday afternoon is pretty rare. So thank you for being inside. We're going to make it worth your while. We have 5 terrific companies and an all-star panel, and I'll say a few words about how these companies got to be the 5 that we're going to hear about today. Originally, 31 companies applied to have the honor of presenting, and the investment group got together, they discussed, they reviewed, they critiqued, they voted, they got the group down to 18, and then they went through the process again. They voted, they discussed, they critiqued, they did some diligence, and got the group down to 10 finalist companies, and then they did some more diligence, more discussions, more voting, some wine sipping, some dart throwing, and some coin flipping, and more voting. And then there was a puff of white smoke from the roof of the building, and the 5 finalists were announced. And so that's how we got to these companies today, in case you were wondering. So let me talk a little bit about the wonderful panelists that we have with us today. Why don't you come on up, please? Also, before I introduce them, I want to thank the individuals who helped coach and prepare the presenters that we're going to hear from. And I think you'll realize these presentations are really first class and very polished. And so we should thank Pam Stevenson, Stephanie Hooper, Sue Meyer, and Tim Rifke. And they prepared each company for battle. So thank you. A lot of effort went into this. They tweaked every slide, every question was anticipated, and every reference to the Saudi Crown Prince was eliminated. So these presentations are ready for you. So one of our panelists, Eric Winquist, who we got to hear from earlier. As you know, Eric founded and ran JAMA Software. Also interesting, Eric, before that, Eric was a business systems analyst at John Muir Hospital System in California. And that's important to know because that will come in handy with one of the presentations we're going to hear from today. And Eric, of course, is a hero for many of us in Oregon for growing a world-class tech company that employs close to 200 Oregonians and has a bright, bright future ahead of it. And it shows that we can do this here in Oregon. So thank you, Eric, for all you've accomplished, and thanks for being here with us today. And now I'd like also to introduce Pam Horan. And Pam is a co-founder of Media Tech Advisors, and they identify and invest in and leverage technology that is transforming the businesses of media, advertising, and commerce. And prior to joining the Online Publishers Association, where she was a VP of Marketing and Membership, she was VP of Marketing and Business Development with Zeno Systems, which is the digital magazine service. And she drove key strategic partnerships, including one with Apple. Pam, many of you will know, she's an active participant in the Oregon Venture Fund, and she is admired for her deep expertise and her broad relationships, and we thank you for bringing both here today. Thank you, Pam. And now, a word from the city of Bend.
This is the 8th year of the City of Bend being a sponsor of the Bend Venture Conference. And it's important because we want to diversify Bend's economy to be more resilient than in years past. And not only does it give the opportunity for new businesses to explore and find out about Bend, but it also gives existing companies and startups here the opportunity to be exposed to the West's largest angel conference. The City of Bend is very supportive of its existing businesses and then also businesses looking to relocate. The ways that we do that is we actually have a full-time economic development staff that looks at everything from how we operate our airport to affordable housing. Another way that we help businesses either growing or relocating to the City of Bend is we have what is known as the Bend Business Advocate that helps businesses interact with the city government. And then we also have a contract with EDCO that helps us actually recruit and bring new businesses in to better diversify our economy. The City of Bend is the 4th fastest growing city in the United States, and as that comes with a lot of challenges. But one of the things that we're trying to do is actually implement our growth plan in order to bring in more lands into our urban growth boundary, and then also look for more redevelopment opportunities within the city for businesses that are growing, and then also for the housing of those new employees. The City of Bend business registration fees have been used as a catalyst to expand and grow different industry clusters, including technology, bioscience, manufacturing, outdoor recreation. We also have a burgeoning specialty foods manufacturing industry. I want to thank you, everybody that's attending the Bend Venture Conference. I want to wish the best of luck to all of the companies that are presenting, and in particular, best of luck to all the Bend-based businesses.
Bend. So each of the presenters this afternoon will have 10 minutes to present, and then we'll have time for Q&A. So please think of questions that you think will help shed light on the companies that are presenting. So think of questions. And we will start off. Our first company today is Caligoo, which makes a mobile customer journey software platform. And we have with us Nicola Lottie, the CTO and co-founder of Caligoo.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Nicola Iotti, and let's see if we can see the slides here. Okay, it seems like I need the slides here. Is it possible? Okay. 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 So, hello everybody. My name is Nicola Iotti. I'm a co-founder of Caligoo, and I just moved to Bend from Italy, where I started working in IT in 2004, when we created another company that now is the main Wi-Fi service provider in Italy, with more than 20 million of registered users. With that other company, we manage Wi-Fi for big customers, for example, retailers, shopping malls, hotels, and we've seen in the last couple of years all those big brands trying to use Wi-Fi and other technologies in order to improve customers' experience, and they failed. We have a customer in Italy which is like Best Buy in the United States. They activated Wi-Fi in stores in order to improve customers' in-store experience. Now customers go to the store, take a look at the TV that they like, they use the Wi-Fi in order to buy the same TV on Amazon. So basically, the brand wanted to activate a service for the customers, but actually he is providing a service to the competitor. So the point is that despite all the technologies available, big brands are failing in improving customer experience because they don't really know their customers. they don't know, they don't understand what's going on inside their location. Now, the problem is that if you want to understand your customers, you must first understand that the world is changing, silently, quietly, but fast and radically. Now the separation between the real world and the online world is vanishing, because the way we use this, smartphones. Okay? Now it's hard to tell if you are living a real experience or an online experience. You climb on top of a mountain, you get tired, there is cold, your experience is very real, then you take a picture smiling and post on Facebook, and your experience becomes online. Okay? When I first checked in the BVC, they gave me this. Probably everyone has one. Okay? What is written here? Download the app, because now it's natural to link the physical experience, the real experience, to the online experience. So when you go to Best Buy, and in front of a TV, you start browsing on open Amazon web app, for example, mobile app. Now, as a customer, are you living a real experience or an online experience? Neither of those is a new type of experience. And if you are not able to understand this new hybrid experience, you have no chance to understand your customers. But if you are able to know how this new world works, then you have the power. The power to take the right action in the right time, the power to engage and interact with your customers, the power to build their experience. And that's what Caligoo does. Caligoo takes the customer experience and the user experience in general to the next level, merging real world and online world. And we already rolled out our solution in Italy for major customers, for example, McDonald's, for example, Virgin Fitness Club, one of the largest banks in Italy, Duty Free, one of the largest airports in Italy. And what we do for those customers? We know what's going on into their location. We know what people do, what people like, what people need, what they think. We know who they are, who their customers are. They were in the dark. They were struggling in order to have this information. They were investing money in complex hardware solutions, like installing cameras or sensors, people counters, beacons, or doing surveys, interviewing people, but data were already there. We installed our software platform, pure software, very nice and easy, a clean and simple approach. And then let me walk you through a few examples of what we've done for McDonald's or Virgin or airports in Italy. First, we can detect how people is moving inside the building, inside the location, inside the store, where they spend time. For a fitness club, it's important to understand if you like to run on the treadmill or if you like to swim, or if you like to spend time in the locker room with your friends. You are a different type of customer. For a restaurant, it's important to understand how long does it take to have a table. For an airport, it's important to know how long is the waiting time for the security check. And we know this information. For example, just analyzing the Wi-Fi network. Your useless Wi-Fi network, that now is important. And it is already there. You already paid for it. Okay? Then we can analyze what's happening in the online world, analyzing the internet traffic, in order to know people. We know if they like sports, which sport. We know if they like music, if they like movies, for example. If they are gamers, we can guess their age. We can understand if they are part of a family. We know them. And then, the most interesting part, we can make this knowledge that we build merging the real and the online world actionable. We give our customers, the brand, the power to interact with, with their customers. The power to take the right action the right time. Now we can transform this guy into your guide for your airport experience. We can tell you, go and have lunch to that sports bar, sports restaurant, because we know that you are not going to miss your flight, we know that you are hungry, and we know that you like football, and it is Monday night. Now your Wi-Fi makes sense. Now your mobile app makes sense. Now your loyalty program makes sense. And the brand, our customer, can boost his revenues and can also find new revenue streams, because based on the knowledge that we build, also other technologies make sense. IoT makes sense. Augmented reality makes sense. Okay? Third parties application makes sense and can be able to generate other revenues for the brand. So we started making business in Italy. Now we are expanding our business to United States from here, from Bend, because we found here a perfect match, thank you to the relationship with 7 Peaks Ventures, and also because we are building our US leadership team, and here we found great, talented people, and the market is huge. Market is huge because everybody is talking about customer experience. Microsoft, Salesforce, by the way, we already integrated with Salesforce. And this is triggering huge investment. One single cruise ship company, one single potential customer, just invested $2 billion in order to improve customer experience during the cruise, based on a technology based on wearables, without even considering that you already have this guy in your pocket, 1,000 times more powerful. Disney just invested $1 billion. And the customer experience is just the top of the iceberg, because if we consider all the companies that are trying, all the brands that are trying to innovate their real and online asset, the market is even larger. We sell our products either directly or through partner, and the core of our revenues is basically an annual subscription. We also have activation fees and consulting activities. And we have customers, high-tech companies, but focused on a specific technology, focused on the Wi-Fi, focused on the mobile app, focused on the loyalty programs. So they cannot have, they have a limited vision. They cannot build knowledge of the context. They cannot understand what's going on in real time. And the R&D team is based in Italy, and we are building our leadership team here in the United States. We already have revenues. We are not far to close 1 million this year. We plan to double revenues every year, and in particular, one of our milestones will be having, in the first year of activity here in the United States, a few selected relevant cases, a few selected big customers that can be relevant for our growth, basically. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. Pam, would you like to start us off, please?
So attribution is a huge issue in the digital landscape, and so being able to connect the physical
Correct.
with the digital is very exciting. Can you talk a little bit about actually how the consumer engages with this, or how the vendor, the retailer engages with it? What's the experience?
Yeah, this is very important because, building the knowledge is just the beginning, okay? But you have to make this knowledge actionable. You make the brand able to interact with the customers, okay? And so we have many ways to interact with the customers. Well, we can use the mobile app, for example, which is already integrated in our platform, so we can interact with them using the mobile app of the brand. We are not app developers. We can actually make the brand's app able to be part of this journey. And we can also use chatbots, so software able to reply in chat like it was human. And also we can use other systems like the wallet. It is a native application inside the iOS system, or we can engage the staff members. So we have many ways to interact with the customer. And in particular, it depends on the type of business. So the way to interact with the customer for a bank is different than the way to interact with the customer of a restaurant, okay? But the key point is that the brand is now able to build the customer experience in real time, and we can, in real time, monitor how the customers are reacting to this journey. When the brand is losing the customer during this path. So the brands basically has one target. They want to bring their customers in this specific state. It could be open a bank account or buy more food. Okay, we can help them in order to build this experience and monitor in real time this experience, which includes inviting them, sending them coupons, or sending them special notifications through the mobile app, or controlling screens inside the restaurants that can change the images they are showing depending on who's in front of them. So there are many ways to interact and to build this experience across the real and the digital world.
Thank you. And can you talk a little bit about what permissions the user would need to provide for this to be truly effective?
Okay, this is a very important topic.
Privacy and GDPR. And
this is a very important topic. Thank you for
if you can quickly.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this. Okay, so I think I am a privacy fanatic. Okay, when 2 weeks ago I went to Starbucks here and I realized that they were asking my email address in order to give me access to the Wi-Fi. I just turned it off the Wi-Fi, and they lose the chance to have to know me. Okay, like other million of people. But when I just arrived here in Bend, and I tried to understand what we could do here, I went to the visitor center here in downtown, and I asked the guy, "Oh, I just arrived. What can I do here in Bend?" He said, "Oh, you can do a lot of stuff. What do you like?" Then I was more than happy to tell him that I like hiking, for example, that I have 2 kids, so I want to build an experience for them. So, why? Because I was happy to share this information because we were building my Bend experience. So people actually, if you ask information from them, the key point is provide services for them.
Providing something of value,
Yeah.
then people will be willing to share
That's the point.
more info than they would.
Yeah, and we are not interested in names or ages, etc.
Okay.
We are just interested in building the profile of the device.
Okay. Thank you. Eric?
Yeah, so one question I had. First of all, it was a very compelling presentation because I'd spent some time on the website and was kind of trying to figure out, what is kind of the core of what you do. And it seems like there's a lot of applications to it, which was interesting. That can also, just from my experience, that can also make it sometimes a challenge from a sales standpoint. Can you talk a little bit more about your just tactical go-to-market? Like, how are you selling this? Who are you selling it to? And because I imagine there's lots of different parties involved. That all have to come together in order to kind of make this, get really the value out of it. So can you talk a little bit about how are you getting, because you're clearly selling it, but how are you getting those done?
Yeah, great question, thank you, because that's true. So since we work in a kind of infrastructure layer, you can apply this infrastructure to many different verticals. For example, for the United States, we are focused into retailers, food and beverage, and let's say travels, like cruise ships, for example. And we choose those specific applications. But our go-to-market strategy is, of course, driven by the contacts that we are able to develop. Okay? So we must be very open on the application. And since this is a platform that cannot be sold door to door, you have to find the right entry point, which is probably the marketing in this period of time. Okay? So as soon as we will be able to build this networking and connection, and we will understand which will be the more promising vertical, then we can narrow and stay most focused on that specific vertical. So that's why we are focused for this first year of activity in the United States to close few relevant deals with few relevant customers.
Maybe to help, could you give an example of what the best use case that's coming up that you're most excited about that kind of demonstrates how it would be used?
Yes, we got one of the largest banks in Italy, and we provide them this tool, and now they are, for example, sponsoring concert, okay? And that's what they did before, just sponsoring a concert, hoping that someone will look at the logo. Now, when you buy the concert ticket and you store your ticket in your smartphone, we can wake up this ticket when you are close to a branch office. At this point, this is the starting point of the customer journey. You are close to an office, but we already know something about you. You know that you like that type of music. AI helps us to guess your age, and in general, to start building your profile. And the marketing guys at the bank use this as a starting point of your journey and build a journey. It could be, let's change the ticket, the concert ticket, into a notification and inviting you to enter the branch office. Then, in the same time, I can send a notification to the staff inside the office that someone is entering, and is not an unknown guy. It's someone that is just already has a little bit of information about this, about the concert. And then we can define the experience, which includes also screens inside the branch offices. And the target is bring this guy from this concert ticket to opening a bank account. In real time, the marketing guys from the bank can see how people is reacting to this journey, okay? In percentage, how many people, maybe you send the wrong notification and instead of entering the branch office, goes away. So let's change that step of the journey in order to bring as more people as possible into your target state.
Great. So you thought you were going to a Britney Spears concert and you end up with a new credit card and bank account.
Correct.
See, okay. That's great. Pam, do you have another?
Sure. So it sounds like, based on Eric's question, are you going to be focusing on channel partners, or are you going to have a head of sales that are going to try to, close those accounts? What's the initial strategy?
Well, at the beginning, we are trying to have a direct relationship with the customer. So stay focused on 3 or 4 key customers, 3 big brands, relevant customers, that can be approached directly. Okay. We are also open to another strategy, which could be through partners, could be system integrators, for example, people that already build a Wi-Fi network inside the shopping malls, and they can sell on top this service because they are also struggling in order to bring value to what they already sold. And this is important for revenues, but for the strategic point of view, we think that having a direct relationship with 2 or 3 big brands is more valuable for investors and for future customers.
Terrific. And let's have a few audience questions. Who would like to have a question for Nicola? Yes, please. Yeah, you in the blue shirt.
Up here?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we'll get the box.
Hi, you mentioned AI briefly. I'm assuming you've got AI and machine learning as part of it.
Yeah.
And then the second part of the question is, are you gathering a lot of information? Because the content in and of itself could become a value product you could end up using and selling as you leverage that. Is that part of your strategy, or are you just going to be doing subscriptions and sales? You're going to take advantage of that as you go forward?
So, thank you for the question. This is another important part of our approach. So, from our point of view, AI now and in the future will be a commodity. So you don't have to build a new algorithm for you. The key point is collect the right data, and this brings me to the second part of the question, and organize the data in the way they can be actually analyzed using the right available algorithm. So the key point is collecting the right data, and this is not easy, and this is also a key characteristics of our team. So our team is made by researchers specialized in different areas. We got ITs, we got networking, we got mobile computing, and data analysis. So, because the importance is to make the environment able to modify itself in order to support the customer's experience. So you have to involve smart objects. And this implies that you must be able to discover smart objects, perform protocol translation. So make easy the interaction with the object without forcing users to install any software. So you need to be IoT ready. You need to be also on mobile computing. So the key point is be able to build your infrastructure modular in order to be able to interact with many different technologies and collect heterogeneous data and then use available artificial intelligence algorithms.
Super. Thanks for going through that. So who has the smart object in the balcony? Yes.
Okay, so as a consumer, this is really, really exciting. I really like the idea of this responsiveness.
Thank you.
My question has to do with the data. Who owns the data? Do you own it and you're providing the companies access to it? Do you have a retention policy? What does that look like?
Okay, thank you for this question, very important. Our approach is that our customer, so the brand, owns the data. And I believe that just a few words on this point. In our experience now, each brand is very jealous about the data. He wants to keep his data, and that's good, and no problem for us. I think that in the future, this will trigger another market, which is correlating different data. So if airports, hotels, restaurants, large venues like convention centers or stadium arena can actually share and sell this data in order to build a customer experience that is actually cross-brand, so can involve different brands. So anyway, our approach is that our customers own the data.
Okay, super. Thank you for clarifying that. I think we're out of time, so let's give Nicola a big thank you.
Thank you.
And also, it's worth thanking him and his colleagues for bringing their business to Bend. It's wonderful to have the business here in Oregon. So now we have a special word from our friends at Seven Peaks.
So, my name is Matt Abrams. I'm a general partner here at Seven Peaks Ventures. My focus is on all things enterprise software. Specifically, I focus on all things data, AI, machine learning. Focus a lot around AR, VR, and augmented reality, virtual reality, security, and any new technology effectively that is applying to the real-time enterprise and automating old school enterprise workflows.
So we started Seven Peaks Ventures. Dina Vendetti moved up here from the Bay Area about 5 years ago. We had a crazy idea to start a venture fund here in Bend where we can invest outside, primarily outside of the Bay Area, outside of what you typically think for startups, Bay Area, New York, Boston, and lean into these regional markets like Portland, like Seattle, Denver, where there's amazing entrepreneurs and businesses to be built with an amazing quality of life.
We're fortunate that we've got a sizable team of experienced operators who've been there, done that. There are 4 of us total that serve as the investment partners. We have a venture partner out of Seattle. We have an operating partner that spends more time hands-on digging in with portfolio companies above and beyond what we're all doing on a normal basis. Well, I came to Bend because I wanted to get out of the rat race. And I wanted to be able to have an environment which was going to stimulate the creativity and the passion that I have for what I'm trying to accomplish. And part of that is giving back and making a difference in regional economics.
So it's exciting. I've been in Bend now, 14 or 15 years, and a ton has evolved. And the fund being 5 or 6 years old now, and we're on Fund 2, I'm proud to be a part of it. I'm really proud to be a member of this community, to see us have a 4-year university, to see events like Bend Venture Conference that are just flourishing as a leader in venture conferences across the region. And we've been able to lean into some really amazing companies here. And I think there's a lot more to be had. You're seeing an influx of amazing talent in the area. There's more capital to support that talent. And our incubation idea to start a venture fund here is proving to be a good decision, and it's something I'm excited to be a part of.
All right, thank you, Seven Peaks. Great, thank you, Seven Peaks. So our second company this afternoon is CommLoan, which is creating a marketplace for commercial real estate loans. And please join me in welcoming to the stage Mitch Ginsberg.
Thank you, everybody. As I guess my name is Mitch Ginsberg. Been in mortgage banking for probably about 30 years or so. I guess I started when I was 4, and that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Ran a residential mortgage bank for 25 years, so really understand lending, and just saw an enormous gap, an enormous need in commercial lending to simplify and create a more streamlined process. How many of you have been involved in a commercial real estate transaction? Okay, quite a few. I would imagine for the majority of you, to say the least, it wasn't a great experience. And the reason for that is that the commercial lending landscape is so fragmented. There are multiple different types of lenders, from your life insurance companies to your CMBS players to your national federally chartered banks, state chartered banks, credit unions, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac for the multifamily, and the list goes on to private label players, etc. So to further complicate the issue is there's a multitude of property types, and as we call the main 4 food groups, retail, industrial, office, and multifamily, but then you've got hospitality, you've got all the different single-purpose properties. So very, very complex as far as different property types. And then to add to it, you've got this huge group of different loan types, ranging from monthly adjustables all the way through to 30-year fully amortized and pretty much everything in between. So needless to say, the borrower really isn't well served in this current environment. Very fragmented, very complicated. So the solution is CommLoan. What we've done is we've recognized that there really needs to be a platform to bring all of this together. So CommLoan has created what we call the Cupid platform, stands for Commercial Underwriting Pricing Index Data, and obviously playing on the whole matchmaker thing, we're the lending matchmaker. And what this is this is a transformative web-based platform. But recognizing that we're dealing with an extremely complex and a very, very complex product and a very high dollar amount, that very few borrowers at this point in time are ready to go online, do a loan app for a $5 million building, and then wait for the documents to arrive by FedEx, a few weeks later. So we match the borrower right up front with a very seasoned loan originator who will counsel with that borrower to guide the borrower through the process. So that's the concierge service that we provide. So the Cupid platform, the counselor will sit down with the borrower or on the phone and walk them through the process, find out what their needs are, and then we issue a pre-qualification with 6 top lenders to that borrower that best fit their needs. The other side of the platform essentially is a database of lender information, of the lending guidelines. We're beta testing the platform in Arizona and California, and we've got probably about 350 lenders on the platform representing about 25,000 loan products. The rates are kept up to date every day with algorithms where the system just pings the various indices. And the lenders themselves just have to go online. They have a portal where they can update the product. So if they're adding a product or changing their underwriting guidelines, the borrower also works from a portal. So from a borrower experience point of view, when they get their pre-qualification certificate, they get an email with a link. They go online, they open their portal. They can download their pre-qual certificate, sign the document, their broker agreement online, upload all their documents, and then all the communication going forward is via that portal. The beauty of a self-contained platform that the lender's putting in information, the borrower's putting information, and it's all within the platform is it's extremely secure. Gets away from the old way of doing it where you're faxing or emailing, and I still can't believe that people are faxing documents, but I believe it still exists. And so everything is uploaded in a very, very secure environment. So what is this market size? It's a $500 billion a year industry. That's the size of commercial real estate lending. The very exciting part for us is the space that we live in, is that in MBA statistics, 2/3 of those loans are originated by third parties, which means the banks are used to getting their loans from somebody else. So this space is dominated by lots and lots, thousands, probably tens of or hundreds of thousands of little mortgage brokers that ultimately send the loans to the respective banks. So to draw an analogy, if you looked at the travel industry prior to the advent of Travelocity and Orbitz and Priceline and all these platforms that we all use, anybody wanted to travel, they would go to the neighborhood travel agent, right? There was a travel agent on every single corner. You would go there, they would book your flight, they would book your hotel. Was that the best for you? Probably not, but that's who they had access to. So fast forward to the present day, you now go online and you've got pretty much access, unlimited access to the world's travel data as far as airlines and hotels, etc. And really the travel agent has gone by the wayside with the exception of very specialty trips and stuff that are put together. The mortgage broker today is the travel agent of the commercial lending industry. Very limited access to a limited number of lenders, a very manual, time-consuming process. So these are some of the lenders we have on our platform. We've got all the majors, B of A, Wells, Chase, Citi, all the big national banks. We've got Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac on the multifamily. We've got all the big CMBS players, Goldman Sachs, Cantor Fitzgerald. But the very exciting part is we have all the small community banks in the areas that we go into. So for example, Arizona and California, where we're beta testing, we got all those small niche lenders that are very aggressive on certain loan products within their very limited lending footprint. So truly giving any borrower unlimited access. We also have private label relationships with a whole series of commercial real estate companies where we private label a commercial lending platform for those companies. For example, NAI, Sperry Commercial, SVN, etc. So we give them a commercial lending platform, private labeled, and we provide all the technology and back office support for them. We've also private labeled a lending platform for residential mortgage banks, so they're able to offer commercial loans. Well, who's our competition? Essentially, the competition is the status quo. Any borrower could either go it alone, and they could have access to maybe 3 or 4 banks, very time-consuming, calling, dealing with 4 or 5 loan officers, sending your documentation off. Or alternatively, they can go to a broker, and as we discussed, they maybe got access to 10, 15 different lenders. Once again, very time-consuming, high effort. Or with CommLoan, after a 10-minute conversation with a loan consultant, they got access currently to 25,000 loan programs and will get a result within minutes after that conversation. Really changing the way commercial loans are handled. So how do we make money? We make a fee, a percentage of every loan, through our private label relationships with that we've created with the commercial real estate companies or residential mortgage banks, as well as we are taking over some small mortgage brokerages as net branches using our technology. This is our growth. We've closed probably about just over $160 million worth of transactions to date, which represents about 80-something transactions. We've got about $90 million worth of transactions in our pipeline. This is the growth projections over the next 5 years. We should have an ARR, an annual run rate this year of probably just under about $1 million. Next year, probably around $2.5 million based on our projections, and up to probably around $40 million in the year 2023. This is our team. Obviously, I've introduced myself. Piyush Jal is our CTO, very, very capable, great guy. He was the original architect on the platform. Piyush has been with us from day one. He's been in the industry 22 plus years, worked with major companies like Intel. The other key member of our management team is Alan Schneid. Alan was the past CFO of Starwood Hotel Group when they merged with Marriott. He's currently the CFO at PetSmart. He's probably one of our major single private investors as well, and is a great member of the team. So what are we going to be using the funds for? Essentially to further automate the loan process as we go along, just to increase our automation, accelerate the growth of the loan offer and private label base, and obviously to further drive marketing capabilities. So guys, I guess that's my show. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mitch. Thanks, Mitch. Pam, you want to start off?
So thank you. There was quite a bit of information in that, so we really appreciate it. Is it fair for me to think about the business as kind of the lending tree for the commercial marketplace? Is that a fair comparable?
I think not really. And why it's not similar to Lending Tree, the way Lending Tree works is you go online, you fill in a very quick application. Then Lending Tree's business model is they sell the leads to banks that are willing to pay for those leads. So if I have a certain geographic area, I want to look at all loans in the Bend, Oregon area, that will be my requirement for Lending Tree. So somebody goes online and they're looking to get a loan from Lending Tree in Bend, Oregon, I would get that lead. I pay a certain dollar amount for that lead. So from a borrower experience point of view, the the borrower is going to get contacted by maybe 5, 6 different banks, whoever were willing to pay for the lead. Firstly, is that the best? Are those the best lenders? Probably not. They were the ones that were willing to buy the lead. Plus, the borrower still has to deal with 5 different lenders. The key, and I think this is a great point, and I'm pleased you raised this, with our platform is we focusing on the borrower experience. That's intrinsic in the DNA of CommLoan. We keep going back and saying, how can we improve that experience, that the borrower gets a superior experience to if they were working with their traditional banker or mortgage broker. So in our case, they deal with one person. That's their loan consultant upfront, who's really now giving them access to hundreds and potentially thousands of lenders using technology. So they're communicating with one person throughout the loan process. Initially, the loan consultant, and then secondly, the baton is passed to a credit analyst who gathers up the documentation to put a really quality package together for the lenders. So the huge difference is the borrower experience between us and LendingTree.
But it's still a two-sided marketplace, right? Because you've got to find people who are going to, want to be able to fund these things, and then people that are going to want to.
Absolutely.
So in that regard, obviously creating a two-sided marketplace typically requires a significant amount of investment. How are you planning on supporting that in terms of your marketing efforts and sales efforts?
Okay, so our sales efforts are really very, very direct. So we're working through private label relationships with various commercial real estate companies where we're setting up a private label platform for them. So it's a very target market. It's very easy to define who our customers are, and it's really through direct sales with account executives calling on them in order to do that, which there's not an enormous cost involved with that. In addition, it's taking over existing mortgage brokers, with once again, it's very easy to define the market, who they are. And once again, it's a direct sale, using account executives, et cetera. So absolutely there is cost involved, and that's why I'm here. But it's really not that significant in relation to the growth potential that we have.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, so I want to follow up on kind of where Pam was headed. But congrats on the traction and getting the initial loans. That's always exciting to get that done. And this is an industry that needs some innovation, so that's great. My question, though, is we'll assume that there is no direct competitors, kind of the status quo, and you're building this and you get some success. There are kind of on the residential side, and just in the financial world in general, there's a lot of these matchmaking financial sites. And so can you talk a little bit about defensibility and what would keep some of these more mature, later stage with a lot of money, these financial organizations, of seeing the success that you're having, that, hey, there's a revenue stream there, and then coming in to kind of replicate what you've created?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think it's inevitable that there's going to be competition, and I think to some extent competition validates the process and validates what we're doing. It's a $500 billion a year market, and we're really looking to disrupt an existing status quo that's extremely ineffective and very inefficient. So I have no doubt, I'm under no illusion, at some point in time we are going to be copied with virtually a very similar model. I think the key is just to be ahead and to be that one step ahead. And I think no matter what it is and how deep the pockets are, absolutely the technology at some point in time to a certain extent can be replicated. Which is going to take time, because why this has never been done before is the complexity of it, and really the process flow on the search engine and how the data is organized really was a major task to create a very simple input process and a very simple clean result output of the different loan results. So I think irrespective of the amount of money, and certainly can it be? Yes, but it's going to take them time. It's going to take them time to create the technology and get the process flows right. And more importantly, it's going to take time to build the lender database. And certainly, we're getting lenders used to doing it our way. And now all of a sudden, the next guys are going to have to come in to convince the lenders to do it a slightly different way. So once again, the first to market and first market adopter, we believe we're certainly going to have an edge. But we can't be complacent. I mean, it's obviously something at some point will be copied. I have no doubt.
Okay, great.
And if you are private labeling this with existing commercial loan brokers and offering it directly. In essence, are you competing with your channel by offering this direct as well as through private label?
So the private label is with a, for example, a commercial real estate company. They've got a captive client, and they're saying as a value-added service, they can provide the financing. That's not their core business. Their core business is obviously selling the real estate and making the commission on the real estate. So they're selling it as a value-added service. Clearly it is a profit center for them because we do incentivize them to send us loans and they share in the revenue. But their primary goal is to provide a value-added service. And the feedback that we've received to date from a lot of our private label partners is the value and the simplicity and the access to the market. And probably equally as important that by being part of our platform, it's almost guaranteeing their real estate commission because they're going to get the deal done. And that's the number one criteria. There's such a huge dollar amount at stake on that real estate transaction that certainly the amount of money we're paying them, they would never want to jeopardize that. But if it really adds value to that, so yeah, they're not going to look to us as being a competitor directly.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense. Thanks, Mitch. Let's have a couple audience questions. Does anyone have the magic box? Anyone have a question for Mitch?
God, I must have done a great job.
Someone's coming up with a question. Yeah, please, right here in the blue box.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike, and I'm with Business Oregon. My background is in commercial and residential construction lending. But if I, as an individual, want to purchase an income-producing building and I'm looking for financing, can I, as an individual, access CommLoan?
Absolutely. Just go to CommLoan.com, hit get a quote. You fill in a very, very simple, take you probably less than 5 minutes form, which is just giving your contact information and very high level what you're looking for. And within hours, obviously business hours, you'll get a call from a loan consultant who will say, great, tell me what you're looking for. They'll understand what your needs are, counsel with you, really understand what your hot buttons are. Because once again, this is the importance of having a loan consultant in because, are you willing to maybe you don't want to go recourse. So they're going to say, well, if you go recourse, I can possibly get you an extra 15% on, loan to value on your loan. Would that help you? And you're going to say, no matter, so you really are driving it. And once again, that comes back to the consumer experience that we want to provide the best that you can get out there in the marketplace.
So if I am a commercial mortgage broker, can I access CommLoan for my client then?
If you're a commercial mortgage broker, we would bring you on board as a CommLoan office. We're not going to provide the technology. We would bring you on under our brand, which is what we're starting to do, is bring on small commercial mortgage brokers. And the reason why they would want to come on, they're going to give up a little bit of commission because that's what they're going to pay to us. But they're going to probably spend 20% of the time invested into that transaction using our technology and with our process flows than they would the traditional way. So they can really be focused getting out there and building their business and marketing and selling opposed to a lot of the busy work which we're now doing with the technology.
Great, thank you.
Great. Okay. We have time for maybe one more quick question. In the back
Ready?
there. Oops. Yeah, please speak into the box.
I'm new. I didn't know this was a mic. It's super fancy. So my question for you is, would you ever be interested in diversifying or sourcing your investment funds from a P2B like business lending platform or possibly starting your own?
So what I'm saying is getting just away from just direct, providing business financing in addition to the real estate side. I mean, that's obviously an option. I mean, once you got the platform, you got the customer base, the natural, the natural move would be into ancillary products and tying in and providing the equity component to the real estate transaction as well as being able to provide ancillary services like insurance and property management, etc., where we wouldn't do it, but obviously match them and take a small fee. So I think the key is, so that probably would be our first, as far as spreading out into ancillary services onto the platform. To say that we wouldn't, who knows down the line. But, I think at this point in time, we're dealing with such a massive market. It's such a huge opportunity in itself that, our goal is to stay very focused, do what we do it well, and that comes back to what I just keep preaching is that absolute borrower experience. Every borrower that we fund to date, I will make a phone call to find out what the experience was and how could we do it better. And I think that's really key to our success.
Okay, we're going to have to end with that. Thank you, Mitch, so much.
Good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And before our next company, we have a word from OSU Cascades.
The tech and the entrepreneurial community are growing rapidly in Bend and throughout the Pacific Northwest. And that's where OSU Cascades comes in. They're actually training the workforce that the local community needs.
So I recommend this team setting up shop there. I started 1, you want to go 6 across and 2 down.
I'm taking Web-Based Startup. It's a class where we're all split up into teams and then we get to choose our own startup idea.
First day of class, I told the students, we can read about startups or we can be a startup. And we have no money, we're a startup. So you want a chair? Bring your most crazy chair.
And so we just totally take over the space. I feel like that's what a real startup company is.
They talk to customers, they pivot, come up with new ideas, as well as design, prototype, and code. The closer we can get to real ownership, thinking of people and the team and the end result, the more realistic I believe that would be.
Yong's a really great professor. He's really engaging. You feel like you're collaborating with him and you're both part of the process and part of the team.
To design that UX flow, use the sticky notes so you can move them around. In many ways, computer science has very little to do with building software. It's about solving problems that are as close to us as our families or as broad as our region or even the nation. Computer science doesn't exist on an island. It's something that is intentionally and by its very nature cross-disciplinary.
When I graduate, I'm going to be ahead of the curve because I have those real-world connections. This is my 3rd internship and now I know that at least I have something on my resume and I have these connections.
The computer science program at OSU Cascades is here because the community demanded it. We're meeting this need, and so far every single student that's come out of the OSU Cascades program has had a job immediately upon graduating.
OSU Cascades is being really innovative. You wouldn't expect it at a university of its size, but the work underway at OSU Cascades transforms people and companies. It's something that, only the top universities around the country like Stanford do. So that's why Seven Peaks Ventures has created this faculty scholar program.
We're already making an impact. What we have is a scaling problem. With more resources, imagine what we could do.
Come alongside of us and help us support OSU Cascades and the growing, thriving Central Oregon economy.
So there's no constraints on the solution. Does that make sense? Let's try it out.
Hello, everyone. I'm Becky Johnson, Vice President for OSU Cascades. I'm here today with Dino Vendetti, Managing Partner of Seven Peaks Ventures. Come on over, Dino. So that was a really awesome video, but it shows you the kind of impactful work that Yong Bakos is doing in our computer science program at OSU Cascades. And in recognition of Yong's amazing work and his great potential, I'm thrilled to announce that Dino and his partners at Seven Peaks Ventures have decided to fund Yong's position as a faculty scholar for computer science innovation and provide the initial resources that Yong needs to start scaling his program to meet the growing needs in our region. So thank you, Dino, and your partners.
Thank you, Becky. We're delighted to do this. Developing a talented workforce is absolutely critical to the Central Oregon entrepreneurial ecosystem. And Bend is a entrepreneurial community at its roots, and Yong has brought that same entrepreneurial approach and energy into his classroom. And it shows. And the connectivity he's developed within the local tech community here in Bend has been phenomenal. So we're thrilled to support this. And I think this faculty scholar position provides some of the resources needed for Yang, but it doesn't, but we need more. So what we're hoping is that many of you in this room and in the community will join us in supporting Yang in this effort so we can grow this faculty scholar program to provide even more funding so that our kids get truly a world-class education. So Yang, where are you? Where is Yang? Here he is. Let's give Yang Bakos a big hand. This guy's amazing.
Thank you. That's very exciting. And our next company is Stabilitas, and they're making an AI engine designed for security teams. And please join me in welcoming to the stage the founder and CEO, Greg Adams. Welcome, Greg.
Howdy. Hi, thanks. I'm Greg Adams, co-founder and CEO at Stabilitas, a company that's digitizing physical security. So we're not a cybersecurity company. We are a company that's attacking a $65+ billion market in the United States alone, which really has not felt the impact of data yet and the transformative potential there. So the quick stats on us started in 2015. We're about a $500,000 in annual recurring revenue right now, and we're very much a SaaS company. And what we're trying to do is use our AI engine to read open source information, tell you information that's under your nose everywhere, to help security teams react to emergencies more quickly and take action that can get their businesses back to operation at full strength as fast as possible, or even potentially see events coming and be able to stay ahead of them. So if we look at the Paris attacks, for instance, I'd argue, hey, there's a chance here we could have seen something coming. And this is coming actually off of our machine learning engine. This is data that I went through myself. You see in the weeks prior to the Paris attacks, there have been some blips, a couple of bomb threats, some other things that security managers working at companies or in law enforcement, things like that, would have said, hey, we should pay attention to this. But then if you look at the day of the actual attacks, the bottom graph there, you see a bunch of anomalies. There had been the German soccer team was evacuated from their hotel, the national soccer team. There had been a subway platform that was shut down 30 minutes before the attacks kicked off. What I'm saying is, hey, we wouldn't have predicted that people were going to come from Brussels and launch an attack, but in a world where we're overwhelmed with information and we can't get to what's important, we need something to cut through. And Stabilitas is trying to do that, and we're trying to do that in the physical security space because it's a place that we care about. I was a Green Beret before I got out of the military and pursued this company. I worked in places like Iraq, Afghanistan, all over Asia, and it was a constant challenge to get ground truth and to understand, hey, where I should focus. In Afghanistan in particular, I was responsible for a population of more than 400,000 people spread out over 500 square miles. How could I get to what was important? It was a nearly impossible task. I went to grad school inspired by some PhDs that kind of bounced through my valley in Afghanistan. And I had a great opportunity at Harvard to study a little bit of data science and see if there could be a business here. And since then, the world hasn't started to feel more certain. It's become a less certain place. And I've seen more of an opportunity for us to do something powerful to change that. And we've started in the corporate space where, surprisingly, there's a 50% increase in what are called duty of care solutions, so spend to take care of employees as they're traveling all over the world, and now even when they're working from home. And a 20% increase in what you'd call security operations center solutions. And this is one of them. This is where, this is MasterCards, where we are serving companies like them. Every one of the screens you see up in the background here is a source of information that's unstructured, that human beings have to look at it to make sense of whether there's something there that's important that they should dive into. And that information that's coming at them, it's growing exponentially. They can throw more screens at the operations center and try to throw more bodies at it, but they're not going to be able to uncover what's important by doing that. they need something like Stabilitas, which uses a machine learning engine to analyze the news just like a human being would and condense it into what's important by event. So we're structuring open source journalism, social media information, bringing it together into these events, categorizing it just like a person would as a weather event, a terrorism event, and then giving a summary that the security team can then take action on to resolve the information and get back to the incident and get back to work. What this means is time saved. What we've always been told is from the customers that we're dealing with right now is that 15 minutes is their gold standard for reacting to an emergency. If you look at the Manhattan truck attacks last year where we served an executive protection company, we helped resolve the incident, identify something was happening, contact the people that were on the ground, see if they were okay, and tell them to shelter in place within 3 minutes. This is a game changer for those that are working in security. We're like the Bloomberg for security operations centers going forward. Johan Windmiller at Physician Mutual, one of our customers, would tell me about the anxiety he'd have going to bed at night, that he'd get a push notification, it'd wake him up in a panic. Now, Stabilitas is his eyes and ears, and he sleeps better at night. We're serving customers like Ingersoll Rand, whom we now started helping them monitor their supply chain, and we moved out throughout their company, where they've got their security operations center actually located in Davidson, North Carolina. How else were they going to know, without Stabilitas, about a protest that was impacting their warehouses over in Vietnam? We made our first enterprise sale in May of 2017 at Procter & Gamble, and since then we've continued to land impressive and massive logos from Ingersoll Rand, Physicians Mutual, Bayer, Travel Leaders Group, Major League Baseball just last month, and a large online retailer in Seattle that's looking for another headquarters right now. We see a $4.4 billion segmented addressable market opportunity in the United States alone, but we're focused laser tight on the corporate security space right now in the large enterprise segment. This is really just the tip of the iceberg. Understanding these events, trying to suss fact from fiction and get to ground truth is critical for journalism. It's critical for pricing insurance, staying ahead of market-moving information in finance, getting your logistics pen down, which we're seeing now with Ingersoll Rand. There are consumer applications for what we're doing, and we see it in travel already. And of course, we're still passionate about the government space, where we know there's a $71 billion intelligence budget for tools and people and manpower. We're beating our customers because we're getting information that's in a wide fire hose more quickly and categorizing it more quickly for them. But we're also beating the competition because we've got the enterprise integrations that they need to offer more value so that they can take action during an emergency, so they can understand what assets are impacted. We're getting beyond just an intelligence feed. It's been founder hustle that's been selling the product so far, minus a couple of experiments so that we could figure out where we need to go going forward. And what we found was inside sales works well for us. We put $39,000 into sales and marketing late last year. In 6 months, it turned into $355,000 in total contract value. There's a 9x return on our spend. And the great thing about it was that the contracts tended to be 3 years in duration and paid up front annually. So we plan to execute on an inside sales team strategy going forward, giving them the content to grow quickly. What we're looking to do over the next year is show that we can get to consecutive and high quarter-on-quarter growth and cross the $1 million revenue threshold. The inside sales team is falling in on a great pipeline that we've built out so far, more than $1.2 million in risk-adjusted or expected value, and we've got a couple of channels that are opening up that should be exciting to pursue. If we execute as planned, we'll be north of $30 million in annual recurring revenue by 2022. We've also had some other big wins out there. So we've had some non-dilutive capital that's come in from the National Science Foundation. We've won more than $1 million there for our work in the data-driven process that we're taking. In addition to a great mission, this is something I'm passionate about. I was getting emails from General Miller's staff over in Afghanistan today. And the economic opportunity that we see here, clearly, I'm all about building elite teams. I had an elite team as a Green Beret in the military, and I'm looking to build the same thing here. While I don't have the time to dive into why all these are phenomenal people, I'm proud to work with each of them. I mean, especially Chris Hurst, he's my co-founder. We met at Harvard Business School. You might have seen him on TV at a Best Ranger competition in the early 2000s, and he was the first enterprise risk manager at Mercy Corps just down the road in Portland. right before we started the company. Jason Flax, our CTO, he's at Microsoft, Dolby, several other really impressive companies, but at Marchex, he built a machine learning system that beat IBM Watson and Google for the semantic classification of speech and text. And then you've got guys like David Ambrose, who's just joining the team as our VP of sales, so he worked at Smarsh in the neighborhood and started his own company, SecureCast, where he led the revenue growth team there. So, I'm Greg Adams, we're Stabilitas. I'd love to talk with you if you're interested in learning more about what we're doing to see how we can work together to make the world safer, a safer place. Thanks much.
Great, thank you, Greg. Eric, do you want to start off, please?
Hey, so Greg, fantastic job on the presentation, and also spend time on your website. It's a really impressive website. I love when I see early stage companies that look like they've been around much bigger than they actually are. So hats off to that. That was great.
Thanks much.
I want to dig in a little bit into, and it's great to also to see you already tracking the metrics. Just coming from somebody that I was a laggard on the whole metrics thing, so it's great to see kind of that right up front. You mentioned a $65 billion market, but then I'm also seeing you're going after the enterprise, and I got to imagine, can you talk a little bit more about what size company, what's the profile, again, of a company that has a security team?
Yeah.
And then secondly, do they have budget for this? Are you having to kind of create a narrative around why they need to go get budget for this, or are they spending on other tools or other things? Talk a little bit more about the ROI.
Yeah, just trying to see if I can flip around in the slides here. But the way that we've gotten to, perfect, that's what I was looking for. So the target market that we've gone for is definitely enterprise customers with $1 billion or more in revenues. That's both privately held companies and publicly held companies in the United States. So we're looking for companies that primarily speak English so that we could have a focus for our machine learning feed. And that's definitely our beachhead. But when I look at the broader 200,000 organizations that are out there, they may not have a title of security manager like these corporate security teams do in the enterprise space. They're very clear. We can hunt them down on LinkedIn, stuff like that. When you talk about the broader opportunity out there, you're talking about people that work in dispatch for law enforcement, for an ambulance company, things like that. They're part of the broad opportunity. You're looking at municipalities and who might be working, again, in a dispatch kind of role there, or in some other kind of HR role in some cases. My co-founder's wife is a principal for a school, and she gets inbound marketing all the time for messaging and notification platforms for reaching out to parents during an emergency. And so there's clear application there, but she's not a security manager. She would be the principal that we're looking out for. So I think what we're trying to do as far as our product goes is lower the barrier to entry for any of the customers so that they could log onto our website and get access to our dashboard and start to get up and functioning versus having an enterprise sales process and implementation, which we have to have right now, but that's great for getting the customer feedback and getting the product right. So we'll have to change the sales process as we go to those smaller organizations that have a non-security person leading them. But right now we're getting the product right, and we think there's a massive market opportunity there on its own.
Thank you.
First off, thank you for your service. Certainly appreciate that. But also, as Eric said, terrific presentation. What are some of the challenges that you think you're going to face as you try to scale, especially as you talked about scaling to 30 million by 2022? What do you think those big challenges are?
So Jason Flax is a CTO that I hired specifically because he's a product-minded person, but he's built engineering teams from scratch, and he's had revenue responsibilities with products that he brought on internally from scratch. He grew something at Marchex from 0 to north of 10 million in revenue. Building a scalable product is something that definitely I worry about, being able to hire the talent to go forward, and that's why being able to bring on guys like Jason was so important. The next big thing is how do we build a scalable sales team? So we ran some of the experiments on the sales side to see what we need to do. And as I told you, we saw the best return on investment by working on an inside sales approach. And so the sales leader that I've hired and is coming on now is somebody I think we can build a framework around. From the beginning, we have to be metric driven, make sure that we're hitting our milestones and we're all aligned as a company to make that happen.
Great.
Did that answer your question?
So if your core innovation is your AI engine, why did you choose to provide it yourself as a service to customers versus licensing it to existing security firms that are serving your market?
So we got off the phone with G4S this morning. We work with an executive protection company. Those are kind of some of the channel opportunities that I mentioned out there. We wanted to make sure that we are the people selling the product right now, to make sure that we understand what the customer wants. We think we have some insight on this from having worked in the security space, but you need the customer feedback. And so we've always started with direct sales to get the tight customer feedback, make sure that we're speaking the right language with the customer. But if the channel is right, we'll definitely experiment with it. I'm not going to say that we're taking a channel strategy going forward. We're just going to experiment and see what works. For companies in travel, like Travel Leaders Group, they have a reseller agreement with us. We already have 6 proposals out with them since signing that reseller agreement about a month ago. There's a big opportunity there, and we're part of how they can attract customers, so they see massive ROI potential. G4S sees something similar, but in a different market altogether.
Super. Questions for Greg from the audience? Does anyone have a magic box or question?
Somebody up top.
Very back? Yeah. Is there a question up there? And maybe while they're getting the question organized, what are some of the unique and proprietary data feeds that you're able to bring to your platform that maybe isn't being tapped into today?
Well, so there's our customer user base. They have the ability to share information with others in the security ecosystem, and that's kind of the dream, is to break down information silos that exist in the security community, whether it's from the overclassification of intelligence or whether it's ego. When there's breaking news and you need ground truth, that there's somebody there that's working in a different organization from you, you're going to find a way to make something happen. And we're trying to open up the potential for that right now. So those would be examples of something that's more proprietary. Other than that, like the secondary information, so the summarized information that we're generating on our platform is absolutely proprietary.
Super, thanks. Yeah, in the balcony, please. Up here.
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
All right, why don't you speak
shout
loud and we'll repeat. Go ahead and shout your question. Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Got another channel partner.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thanks very much. I'll follow up
great.
with you
See you guys
immediately
soon.
afterwards. Yeah.
Good night. Okay. Super. Okay. Great. Thank you. Other questions for Greg? Or pitches? Channel partners?
Thank you for your presentation. My question really has to do with the threats that you're trying to identify, which are always changing and they're becoming technologically more sophisticated, et cetera, et cetera. How important is it that your company have the monitors and the engineers, et cetera, that continue to track these threats so that you can upgrade your platform and provide current useful information?
So we have our own data training team that's in-house. It's actually kind of a fractional team. It's spread out all over the place, but it's absolutely important for us to continuing to work on our own algorithms to be able to find ways to basically cluster information and try to get to the validity of sources more and more. But we built out our training data set comes from human analysts that have worked in the military or come out of security and intelligence programs. And so what we're trying to do is model as close as possible to what a human being today would pay attention to as a threat. So as people adjust, our training model and training data set should be adjusting.
Hey, just one last question. Have you thought about opening up for consumers?
We have, and I think we're starting to we know that we didn't want to do it right away. Yeah. We thought that selling to the enterprise space was a better way to get the fundamentals down for the company, but we can absolutely, this is a very similar product, especially when it comes to the travel piece of our platform in the consumer space. And we need to be able to dedicate resources to it. Right now, I'm not willing to do that other than in an experimental fashion, but with Travel Leaders Group being a customer, they expose us to a lot of travel agents and a lot of individual travelers. We should be ingesting several million passenger name records next year and giving threat reports to those people before they travel internationally. And so we're going to start to understand what it would look like to scale the product in the consumer space by doing that.
Cool.
Great. Thank you. This is super, and I was talking with the security guard in our building the other day, and he says he's so busy that he barely has time to relax for more than 6 hours at a time. And this will definitely keep people busy because it sounds like it's a very useful and applicable platform. So thank you for taking the time, Greg, to share it with us.
So here we go again. We're ready to rock and roll with the Cascade Angels video.
I'm Julie Harrelson with Cascade Angels. Cascade Angels is a collaborative venture fund based in Bend, Oregon, that invests in Oregon and the Pacific Northwest more broadly. 5 years ago, about this time of year, I came to Bend and I knew about 6 people. And there was a group that said, we'd really like to start a year-round collaborative venture fund in Bend. And I said, that sounds like a great idea. So I started having coffee with people about 5 years ago. And if you fast forward to today, the fund has expanded. So we've made over $3 million in investments in 20 plus companies. And I have a business partner, Robert Pease. And we've developed this great platform for accredited investors, individuals with a lot of expertise, and institutional investors to come together to invest in a really diverse group of companies.
Lead Method first started working with Cascade Angels on a seed round in 2015, and we worked a lot on operations improvements, help getting the company stood up and in the fast lane, and then we started working with them again through the win on the BVC in 2017. Cascade Angels has been very supportive of Lead Method through the entire relationship. A couple different things that they have done is they've introduced us to other funds and other investors. The last raise we did in 2017 was $1 million, so it really opened up the pool of folks that we can talk to. The other thing is the investments that they've made in other companies, we've bonded throughout the state of Oregon and worked together, shared best practices, so it's a great network to work with.
As a fund, we like to think of ourselves as active, not activists. So if there are strategic resources that we can bring to the companies as they're going through their growing cycle, then we do that. And we have a deep bench of accredited investors with a broad array of domain experience that can help those companies. And we've had investors, and we have done everything from assembling furniture to talking about growth strategy in the 5 years that we've been at this. We made our first investment about 4 years ago, and really are happy to be in the BVC season and part of this conference.
Thank you. Thank you, Cascade Angels. So our next company is Talkoot, and Talkoot makes a collaborative cloud-based tool that's used for creating product descriptions and stories for consumer brands and for retailers. And it's our great privilege to have next on stage is Brian Hennessy. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Hello, as Eric said, my name is Brian Hennessy. I am the CEO and founder of Talkoot. Talkoot is a cloud-based platform that makes writing huge piles of product copy as easy as everyone's boss thinks it is. So before Talkoot, I was the global writing director at Adidas. And then I left Adidas and started my own content agency, Thread. Thread is where Talkoot was incubated and spun out from. One of the biggest projects that Thread had back then was writing all the product copy for Adidas's e-commerce websites around the world. So in 2009, that project was 3,000 pieces of copy. But then as Adidas's e-commerce sales went from $89 million up to over $1.6 million, that project went from 3,000 pieces of copy to up over 35,000 pieces of copy. And that project was what spawned Talkoot. So when I say product copy, just to make everyone clear, it is that little easy-to-read piece of or story right next to every buy button on every product page on every e-commerce site in the world. It is a unsung hero of the e-commerce experience because people do not buy what they do not understand, and the more you understand something, the more people buy things. So the problem that Talkoot solves is that when someone sits down to write this easy, as consumers, you might look at this and go like, oh my gosh, that's no big deal. But when you sit down to write something like this, you have to first plow through a mountain of PowerPoint presentations, line lists, emails, meeting notes, lookbooks, and product catalogs to glean all the data you need to write that easy-sounding piece of copy. And then you need to work with an entire team of product managers, project managers, editors, proofers, brand managers, and attorneys, and they need all that information too to make sure that that product copy is on brand, it has all the circle R's and TM's in all the right places, it won't get the company sued, and so take all that work that goes into that one little piece of copy and then multiply it by 1,000 because that's the amount of copy that that team needs to write to go to market that month. And then on top of that, layer in even more complexity because that entire team needs to know exactly where every single product sits on in your product line. So is it written to a runner? Are you writing to a skater? Are you writing to a basketball player? Because those are very different voices and they need very different content for their products. Is it part of a horizontal campaign because that is going to have ad support and you have to tie into that message? Is it a special makeup for Dick's Sporting Goods or Foot Locker because they're going to have to approve the copy? Is it a collaboration with another brand or a famous designer because they need to look at the copy? The list goes on and on and on. This is hard. This is why I like to say writing one piece of copy is a small act of creativity. Writing 1,000, 3,000, or 5,000 pieces of copy is a massive engineering feat. So that is why when you go online and look at most e-commerce sites, they're choked with things like this. This is a low-quality, purchase-resistant list of benefits and features. This is not what I'm talking about, and I know you guys thought this is what I was talking about when I first got here. This takes no collaboration, it takes no coordination, and it takes no knowledge of any consumer. This is easy. This is data entry. So this not only is incredibly boring to read, but now it's going to put you out of business too. Because now we're living in the world of direct-to-consumer. And what all the direct-to-consumer brands who are disrupting every industry knows is that content is the beating heart of their brand. It is not an afterthought. It is not a cost center. It's a competitive advantage because direct-to-consumer is about having one-on-one conversations with consumers and having relationships. And you do that through really high-quality content. So not only is the quality of the content going up, the stakes are going up there, but I'm going to take a pause here and say the next slide is literally real. It just happened. But 18-month life cycle, product life cycles are over. Product releases are now event-driven. You release products about Beer Fest. You release products about movie releases. You release products about holidays. So products aren't being released in seasons anymore. They are being released by months and even weeks. And the content has to keep up because if you don't have a story, you don't have anything to sell. So most brands are built not for this direct-to-consumer world, they're built for the old wholesale world where where product content was an afterthought. It was written by different teams in siloed events, and it was written from different source material, usually with spreadsheets and email. And this is slow, it is error-prone, and it is really costly. What Talkoot does, it brings all your content creators and approvers across departments and geographies and your whole organization and brings them into one collaborative workflow. It pulls all the data from the back-end system, so you have all your data, your documents, and your images you need to write that story right now about that product. It also gives everybody visibility about all the stories written about that product. So if you are writing your e-commerce copy, you can see what Amazon wrote. You can see what the translation was. So with Talkoot, our one client, Adidas, has slashed $1 million out of their content production budget. Mountain Hardware is, in their own words, 4 times more efficient using Talkoot. And Doc Martens saw a year-over-year increase just due to the ability to create more and more powerful copy. So in terms of our competitive landscape, you can think of the competitive landscape as a content supply chain. The product content moves from content creation to storage and distribution and to the e-commerce platform and the consumer experience at the website. So in terms of storage and distribution and the consumer experience, those are very mature parts of this competitive landscape, and there's lots of companies to choose from, especially for brands with revenue over $50 million. But in terms of content creation, I've been in this industry for almost 20 years, and I know of 2 companies who didn't do things with spreadsheets and email. They had their own homegrown system, and they hated it because it was all for legal reasons. So everywhere you see spreadsheets and email, people will be it'll be more efficient and cost-effective to work in Talkoot and lots happier. Oops. So in terms of our total addressable market, our PIN strategy starts at sports apparel and footwear because Adidas was our first customer. And apparel and footwear is also the largest e-commerce category in the world. Then we've landed customers in sports equipment and fashion apparel and footwear. And then we've moved on to furniture, toys and hobbies, and accessories and luggage. And then finally, we're going to move on to appliances, electronics, home goods, and cosmetics. That represents over 23,000 manufacturers, 334 retailers, and 7,600 agencies that support those companies. So in terms of traction, we've landed 9 customers, and these aren't just any customers. These are marquee customers in our targeted verticals. We have $430,000 in annual recurring revenue. Average deal size is $48,000, and our monthly recurring revenue is $36,000. And not only are we excited about our traction, but we're also excited about our pipeline. In the last 3 months, and just the last quarter, we've added over 90 solid leads. These are all household names that you probably recognize, and if not, they're direct-to-consumer upstarts that you will hear about really soon. For instance, we demoed to North Face earlier this month. We flew down to Alameda 2 weeks ago, and we now have a working prototype running, we're doing a pilot project with North Face right now. We demoed to Old Navy 2 weeks ago. They loved it. They thought Gap would love it, so they sent it up to corporate. We demoed to corporate last week, and they're gushing about it, and they think that this is good. They want to use it across all their brands. So our revenue model is very simple. It's a SaaS license with $65 per seat per person. This allows us to land and expand in a department and expand upwards. We have a 5-seat minimum and 60-seat average. And our leadership team, we're all experienced entrepreneurs who have founded and grown companies. We have lots of experience in the SaaS world. Derwin Harris, our COO, was actually a co-founder of Jama, who you've talked about today, and Eric is sitting right there. And our financials. 2018, like I said, we have $430,000 in recurring revenue. 2019, our plan is to be at $1.2 million. 2020, $4.2 million. And 2021, $9.2 million. We are here at the Bend Venture Conference, and I am standing on this stage because we are looking for partners to take this ride into the direct-to-consumer world with us. Thank you very much for listening.
Super. Thank you, Brian. And Pam, you want to start off?
So first of all, congratulations on the marquee clients that you've been able to secure so far. Can you tell me a little bit about who you sell into and what does the sales and marketing efforts look like?
Yeah. So the people having the pain are these content teams. There's content teams in all these consumer brands, but the content teams don't have the budget, but they have the pain. And so we usually have strangely, like I think that there's a lot of people who don't believe in LinkedIn, but we have amazing success with LinkedIn because these writers and content managers, no one contacts them. So we contact them, they have the pain, they send it up the chain to, usually it's what's called digital transformation team. So there's teams inside the company who are trying to digitize this content supply chain, and their job, they've been hired to do this, and so when they hear about us, they're excited because they're like, ooh, I get to take this back to the tribe and tell them that I found a solution. So it's usually marketing operations or digital transformation teams.
And how are you creating awareness among the audience?
You know, we're going to fashion, especially in fashion and outdoor and sport, they're strangely tight-knit communities. And so we'll go to outdoor retail, and I'll speak, and coming from Adidas and having solved this problem, they're hungry for a solution, and so we're getting a lot of awareness there. We're doing outreach, we're doing webinars. When we do a webinar, Levi's shows up, Columbia Sporting Goods show up. So we're doing direct sales, we're walking the floors, and then we're also doing a lot of content marketing.
Just a question, kind of following up on that. It sounds like you've got some things dialed in terms of the product, some great marquee brands. In terms of accelerating the business now, where do you see, what are those kind of roadblocks you're going to have to overcome in order to continue to kind of hit those milestones? What are you thinking about?
Really, it's figuring out the sales model. I mean, we're getting great traction, but this is all done with 8 people who have no sales experience. It's just been scrapping and bootstrapping. And so we're about to bring on a VP of sales, and it's really scaling that sales because we have a mature product, the market is hungry for it, and it's just kind of making sure we get that sales cadence going. And then building in the features that make it more sticky, like translations and integrating with industry standard platforms.
So if on the terms of the market, if you get, let's say, 1,000 customers, 1,000 brands, and they're paying $40,000 a year, that's about a 40 million opportunity. How do you grow that? Is it going deeper in the workflow, or is it going into other verticals? What's your thinking on the bigger opportunity?
You know, there's a few different ways to go with the opportunity. The first opportunity is to own the whole production life cycle of the product page. So it's not just the copy. There is photography, video, and translations, and each one of those, as e-commerce is becoming mature, each one of those has to act in tight coordination. So for instance, for our largest customers and most digitally sophisticated customers, when the photography changes, the story has to change, and then the translation has to change, and it all has to work in tight coordination. And so first is to be kind of like the Adobe suite of the product page. And then from there, there's no marketing system. So there's campaign-based systems like Sprinkler and Opal, which are great for campaign-driven stuff. But the sweet spot that we own is we actually can link marketing to a product number. And so everywhere else in an organization like this, you can link sale or ROI, you know, your materials, your cost, all your costs come back to a product number. The only thing that doesn't come back to that product number is your marketing costs or your marketing ROI. With this, if we integrate with a Sprinkler or kind of social media platforms, we can actually pull that information back, serve up our product copy to those teams who need it, and then pull the success rates back and tie it to a product number.
Terrific. Let's think about audience questions. Raise your hand. Okay, yes, right here with the orange cube.
So can you say a little bit about your current integrations and your planned integrations with what platforms you're working with?
Currently, we don't have any standard integrations, but that is post-funding, that is a key to our success, is integrating. So we've been developing for our customers, and they've been doing their own custom integrations internally to their own back-end systems. But right now, we want to integrate with, like I was saying, industry standard platforms. Like there's a company called Elastic Suite who we've been talking with a lot. We share customers. And Burton Snowboards is dying for an integration with Elastic Suite and Talkoot. And as soon as we integrate with one customer, they have an entire list of marquee customers that we can then go to and sell to. So Shopify, WooCommerce, all these industry standard solutions, when we integrate with those, we can just go down their line list because nobody has this content thing solved.
So having written and dealt with these, written copy and dealt with these at some of the companies you have on your target list, I totally understand the problem you're describing. But one thing I wasn't clear on is the final writing of the individual product copy, is that still done by an individual? You're just pulling all that data that they need to refer to together? Or is it sort of a writer bot?
No, the writer bot is a long way away.
That's what I figured.
So it is written by writers. Sometimes it's internal, it's mostly internal to these organizations, and sometimes it's external, sometimes it's a mix. But we do have a little bit of intelligence in that we have this thing called brand check. And so, for instance, brand check, as an example, you probably don't know this, but you can't say this shoe improves performance. You will get sued. I've been involved in 3 lawsuits. You can't say that. And so brand check, you can actually preload. It's kind of like spell check, only you can preload phraseology. And so if a writer says improves performance, it says, nope, can't say that. You have to say helps improves performance. You can't say this protects. So you can help steer the writers in the right direction so that they can focus on doing great stuff, creating great content, and they don't have to worry about all the details and niggly stuff. And further on, we're really close to start kicking off our machine learning product, where it's translation. It's not just machine translations from one language to another, but for instance, Burton, they write copy for their own site, but it has a very Burton voice and it feels appropriate when you're on Burton.com. When they sell on Amazon, they don't want the Burton voice there because that's mom and pop shopping for your son or daughter. So you can actually do machine translations for translating Burton voice to Burton Amazon voice.
Very cool. Okay, yeah, please, right here.
Can you talk a little bit about the onboarding process with the writers? Because even though the data that they're used to collecting and it's rather much a pain for them to be able to do it, changing behavior can be challenging.
Yeah, and this was critical because this is a very non-technical audience. I know this because I employed a lot of them in the past. Writers aren't technical, so we made the interface, it looks like Google Docs. And we actually have a bit of a problem when we show people outside the industry because they're like, can't you just do Google Docs? The power of Talkoot is in the back end and connecting the relationships. And so the writer, when they go in, it takes like 2 weeks. We've actually had customers turn down training because they're like, no, I think we got this. So 2 weeks and companies are up and running.
Right here with the orange box.
Hi. I was just curious, how did you come up with your 5-seat minimum, and do you have any plans to make like a freemium 1-person, 1-seat option?
No, like not for a while. Not for a while. Yeah, the pricing is, there is still onboarding. We're doing a lot of this because we've been scrappy and because we haven't had funding yet. We have a lot of manual things going on in the background, and so it is really not cost effective to have less than 5 seats. So eventually, yes, we would love to get a freemium version because the world is going from monoliths like Adidas and Nike to thousands and thousands of very successful companies, like direct-to-consumer companies, and we want to make sure we capture those companies.
Can you talk a little bit about, I know you talked about the markets you're going to go after, and it totally makes sense in terms of focusing initially based on the relationships you have in the outdoor and the apparel marketplace. Why is the electronics marketplace so far out in terms of the future when you think about the number of SKUs they have and the kind of the vast opportunity that may exist with that segment?
Yeah, we're just being opportunistic, really, and like when you solve footwear and apparel, it's a natural to go to sports equipment, and you can have a great story to tell. And so it's been more of an organic growth where you can just walk into Burton and say, hey, we do, you have some footwear, and you also have boards. You could do it all in one place, and that's a great story. It's a little harder right now to go to Samsung and say, hey, it's kind of just like shoes and apparel. So we're just kind of going organically. We have nothing, I am not dogmatic about it. If they come to us, that would be great.
Right here, please. Yeah, the orange.
Hi, my name is Jackson. I just have a real quick question. How did you come up with your name, the story behind your name, and do you worry about people pronouncing it Talkoot or Talkoot, and does it even matter?
That doesn't matter, because it's different. It is Finnish for a good old-fashioned community get-together to do things for the community, and that's what it feels like when Talkoot is. You're in there, you're interacting with your team, and it's a bright, sunny, useful place. So most of the systems that are in the product information realm are these big, hulking, gray box systems that people hate. And we wanted to make sure that this was a place not only that was efficient, but great to work in. And so Talkoot just felt like it, and the Talkoot.com was available, and Talkoot Circle R was available.
Right here with the blue cube.
Hi. There seems to be a trend, particularly among millennials, toward video, and yet you seem to be focusing on written word.
Yeah.
What about video?
You know, the written word is the fundamental building block of the e-commerce experience. So if you think of photography, a lot of people, photography and video are sexy and wonderful and like tell a great story, but everybody always comes back to the written word. It's kind of like the social contract between the buyer and the seller. Because you might assume that this is, you know, crushed leather. Who knows when you see the photo or the video, but when you go, you can actually see that it says, yes, this is that thing. And so the written word, it's the product description just is not going away. But this can also be used as scripts, for instance. You can actually write scripts in Talkoot, and eventually the next module would be video and photography.
So there's a story, Brian, that Jeff Bezos was advising a group of product startups, and he was giving them some advice, and he said 3 things. One is, you know, it's really important that you value your customers, hire well, and also remember that someday I will utterly crush you. How are you helping your customers become more Amazon resistant?
That's an awesome question, because that's what direct-to-consumer is all about. You can't beat Amazon at their game. What you can do is create a better, richer experience. And when you, like I use that skater, the first product description, because it says Biznets for President. Does anyone know what Biznets for President means? No one does, because no one here is a skater. You're talking skater language, and everything after that, that person, if you're a skater, you read that and you're like, okay, I'm talking to skaters here. Go ahead, let's go. You don't get that on Amazon. So all these direct-to-consumer brands, the way they're winning is by going deeper into story and deeper into content. And so that's where we would want to go, is instead of trying to compete against Amazon, you want to go deeper, kind of do the things that Amazon can't do.
Terrific. Okay, I think we are out of time, so let's give Brian a big hand and thank you. Well done. And now we have a word from Business Oregon. There we go.
I'm Tom Schnell, Business Finance Officer with Business Oregon. Business Oregon is the state's economic development agency for the state. And what we do is we provide both financial assistance along with technical assistance. We do this throughout the state for small to large-sized businesses. The primary role of Business Oregon at venture conferences throughout the state is really to help foster the angel and venture catalysts that are coming together to help fund these small businesses. One of the ways that we do it is through the Oregon Growth Fund. We have funded the Bend Venture Conference last year with the growth stage and the impact stage of $50,000. In addition to the Oregon Growth Fund, we also use various debt financing to help businesses also. For example, last year at the Bend Venture Conference, we funded Voila Coffee for an $85,000 entrepreneurial development loan fund.
I'm Kent Sheridan, the founder of Voila, and Voila makes specialty instant coffee. We partner with a bunch of roasters all across the country, take their coffee and turn it into incredible instant where all you have to do is add water. With the $85,000 EDLF loan, we were able to actually launch Voila. The BVC was in October, and up until then we didn't have all of the equipment we needed to actually get going, and with that we were able to purchase the final critical pieces that helped us launch in November, and we actually launched to being sold out a few weeks later and had to relaunch in January. So without that, we wouldn't be where we are today.
We're excited to be a sponsor, a lender, and an investor in this year's Bend Venture Conference. This is in cooperation with other agencies such as the Small Business Development Center and EDCO, both of which really raise the profile of capital available in the state of Oregon. What we're looking to do is really to grow and expand the ability of small companies to access capital, to grow and to continue to flourish in the state of Oregon. I would like to congratulate all the finalists to this year's Bend Venture Conference. The process can be long and arduous, and yet very rewarding. The time and the effort that you have put into this has shown in the results, and we appreciate you doing this. From all of us at Business Oregon, thank you, congratulations, and best of luck.
All right. Terrific. And our next company is TransformativeMed, and they are helping make hospital electronic medical records more intuitive, better, easier to use. And it's a real problem. I remember I got a chance to actually look at my electronic health record once to see what was actually in it. And it was factually correct, but what it lacked was the personality, the pizzazz, the real me. And maybe this is something that TransformativeMed can help with. So please join us in welcoming to the stage Doug Cusick, CEO of TransformativeMed.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm standing between you and a celebration. Is that the case? So I've got like 10 minutes to impress you and convince you that healthcare is a phenomenal industry to invest in and decomplicate it. I am Doug Cusick, the CEO of TransformativeMed, and I was pleased to hear some of the earlier speakers use the word transformative a couple times because it speaks to what we do. We're actually transforming healthcare in even a small way, but making a big difference. For all of you out there who are doctors, those of you who know doctors, all of us access doctors, one of the challenges you find in the industry is that regardless of where you practice medicine, one of the things you typically hear is that, God, we hate using the electronic record. It really ties us down in terms of being able to deliver care to our patient, and often you'll see it. So we're here to transform, and we're pretty excited about what we've been able to do so far. So let me introduce one of those
Medical care has gotten a lot
Shoot.
more complex.
Can I get back real quick? Let me introduce one of those frustrated docs who's a trauma surgeon, humble trauma surgeon at the University of Washington, who can tell you a little bit about the problem and the solutions that we bring to market.
Medical care has gotten a lot more complex, particularly care of hospitalized patients. The days are gone when a single doctor like Marcus Welby was in charge of a patient's entire hospital course. Today, if you're a clinician in the hospital, you're part of a team of clinicians. And helping your team are more teams of specialists, therapists, consultants, social workers, and so forth. Each person on a team manages a list of patients as they move about the hospital doing their work. And so each team member needs a way to quickly organize that list of patients, review the information that's pertinent to their own expertise, and create a portable version of that list to use as they make rounds and take care of patients. Their use of the list needs to be connected seamlessly to their clinical documentation. And at the end of their shift, they use that same list to hand off care to colleagues or cross-covering clinicians. Hospitals invested billions in electronic health record systems to help manage patient information, and they work great for storing patient data, but these systems fail to organize information in the particular ways these teams need it for effective clinical communication and team collaboration. This leaves gaps that affect quality and efficiency, and it leaves clinicians needlessly frustrated. Major electronic health record systems aren't designed to fit the unique workflows for the hundreds of different types of clinical teams in a hospital. But that's okay, because CORS is. It's designed to pick up where the electronic health record stops. It makes the electronic health record work like teams do, by organizing all the information that a team member needs, sharing updates in real time, and putting it at everyone's fingertips. And it does all of this out of the box, already tailored to most teams, and is quickly customizable for any other member of your team. We've spent years researching and improving CORS. We gathered knowledge from clinicians about how they want patient information organized, and we combined it with our clinically proven, best-in-class handoff processes, creating the comprehensive tools required for clinical communication and collaboration. Then we embedded this solution inside the electronic health record system that hospitals already own. So there's no need to change systems or build interfaces. Just use cores. It works the way you do.
Just a little bit about Eric. He's an interesting character. He did this in one take, and it's a shame that one guy has so much talent, but we love him. So Eric spoke to a little bit our core value suite, which is really a set of bundled solutions that are integrated and embedded in the electronic health record. Very broad and very deep. We essentially occupy two very, very broad spaces, one called, as Eric mentioned, clinical communication and collaboration. And it's really about bringing care teams together inside the hospital to collaborate around the best care to deliver to the patients. And not like the old days when it was one doc, as Eric said, but the care teams that function around you. The second space is what we call augmented care intelligence. It's really about bringing disease, very specific clinical decision support based on diseases. And these are very, very big spaces that occupy a huge segment of the healthcare market. Clinical communication, as I mentioned, one of the biggest products that we bring to market today is cores. Dr. Van Eaton spoke to cores. These are the various modules that support the cores product. We've got 3 other products that we're selling today that we're going live with over the next 3 months. And as a matter of fact, we closed a nice deal today that I'll mention here shortly. The second space that I mentioned is augmented care intelligence. The first big product that we brought to market is called Glycemia Care. It's around insulin inpatient management, and there are 4 other products now that we're bringing general availability over the next few months and beginning to sell and close contracts. If you didn't know, in the U.S. alone, it's a $10 billion industry on a yearly basis. It's phenomenal amounts of money that providers spend to purchase the electronic health record and to support it from a services perspective. The 2 predominant players are Cerner and Epic, and they eat up about 50% of the U.S. market and growing, and they're consuming more and more of the international footprint. We've spent the last few years very focused on Cerner. We have about 10% of the Cerner beds in the United States today, and we're moving aggressively internationally, and we're moving to Epic. If you know anything about healthcare, Epic is one of those big players, and moving to Epic is going to be very important. Hospitals really have a choice, quite honestly. They can go with Cerner, they can go with Epic. Regardless, a 2,000-bed system would spend roughly $500 million just to purchase the software, and roughly $100 million a year to support it. These are really, really big numbers, and I think unless you're in the industry, they're shockingly high. If they don't like a particular vendor, the choice is pretty limited. They can rip and replace and go to another vendor, but it's still another $500 million and another $100 million on a yearly basis to support it. We really bring that layer of usability that doesn't matter what vendor they use. Use TransformativeMed to bring in the types of workflows that they actually need to perform their jobs. So instead of ripping, replacing, or waiting for the vendors to deliver very slowly, invest in TransformativeMed, which is what you'll see from our clients. It's much faster, it's easier, and it's inexpensive, and this is really where the true value is delivered and the promise of the electronic health record. So our solutions are easily adopted, right? Clinicians love it. We implement quickly. There are 0 trainers on site. These are some of anomalies for a guy like me who's been in this industry a long time that I've never seen. So it's pretty exciting that we're able to deliver value so effectively. And as I mentioned, we're just a small, very small part of the spend, but delivering significant value based on their overall spend. And this is the proof. Today we have about 130 health system clients across the United States. And the exciting thing about this is these are all 3-year recurring deals. And we're renewing contracts today at about 3 to 5x, which is kind of surprising. So it tells me, number 1, we're sticky, and number 2, we're delivering incredible value. They don't even question when I've been elevating the price. So it's a real big lever as we're moving north in the revenue. Best thing about this, though, is that we continue to land and expand in our existing clients. So in terms of our competitive advantage, we're integrated in the electronic health record, as I said, so in Cerner, moving to Epic, and we're a heck of a lot more innovative than the vendors themselves and any of the single entry vendors that are in the marketplace today. We innovate quickly, and we deliver fast, and we implement quickly and get the adoption that these organizations need from their clinicians, their doctors and nurses, et cetera. So our go-to-market is very simple. To date, it's been mostly inbound, so referrals, conferences, et cetera. We're moving to a very externalized go-to-market approach, so continuing to consume Cerner clients. Also moving into new markets, as I mentioned, Epic. Cerner owns public sector U.S., so the Department of Defense, as well as the VA. And then moving internationally. I spent a decade overseas running IBM's health and life science business, so moving into that business is going to be quite exciting. And then, of course, adding additional products to consume both of those spaces that I mentioned. And the TAM is phenomenal, right? We know that the marketplace exists. We know that they're desperate for our type of solutions, so it's pretty exciting for us to expand quite dramatically. A little bit about our revenue. There are really two metrics that matter to us. Number one, how many beds we contract. And today we contract 100% of the beds in every health system that we contract with. And number two, the revenue per bed. So in 2017, we had roughly $1 million in recurring revenue, and we're a software as a service business. And we were roughly at about $35 per bed per revenue. In 2018, we'll essentially double. We'll hit targets of about $2.2 million in revenue and move the revenue per bed up to about $86 per bed. The interesting thing, back to my earlier comment that I mentioned about today's client, one product, we're ready to sign the deal with them at $383 per bed. It's shocking to me because I've been in the industry this long, but they're so desperate to get the value delivered from the electronic health record that these prices are extremely low from what they're used to making. So by 2022, we're aiming for about a $75 million clip, which again is a really, really small proportion of what they're spending today. I've got a great seasoned team, right? These guys are experienced, they're collaborative, they know how to build, they know how to implement, they know how to sell. And that's the best team that one could ask for. And even more so than the team, I've got a great board of advisors who are really invested in our business. So they give us great advice. They tell us when we pull levers, when we push levers, all of the things that you want from your advisors. So in closing, I've been in this industry for 30 years, you can tell by the gray hair. And I've seen it change over 30 years. And I've led and built big businesses with IBM overseas, with HP in the United States. I've done startups, I've done growth companies. I've never been more passionate about a company in my life and our ability to truly change how healthcare is delivered, not only in the United States and abroad. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Doug. Terrific. And Eric, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, maybe dive right in. So if I understand the vision correctly, it's with the move toward coordinated care, you guys are taking the data that's being stored in the legacy systems and being able to repackage it up to better serve the workflows that the companies need, or that healthcare workers need. Is that kind of a right understanding?
It is. So we're actually embedded in the electronic health record. We organize the data based on the doctor, the specialty, how they want to practice medicine. Instead of forcing them to do something that's not intuitive, organize the data based on that, the type of specialist they are, how they round within their own care teams, when they need very specific data to make decisions. Because basically the EHR is just a massive repository of data. The key is organizing it and presenting it in a way that they can use it and make decisions.
Okay.
And being embedded in the electronic medical record means that we're actually in the workflow and how they communicate and
Cool.
interact with the record itself.
And so maybe digging into the financials a little bit. So
Sure.
and maybe I'm confused, but the company's been around for a little while, right?
We were spun out in 2011 at
Okay.
the University of Washington.
So can you unpack a little bit for us in terms of, it sounds like you've got some revenue, but I guess, 6-7 years, kind of at that $1 million mark last year, $2 million this year. What's kind of the catalyst now that is going to kind of create that inflection point where we'll see the hockey stick?
So that's a great question. The market has opened. In the last couple of years, provider organizations have realized that their vendors are not going to deliver as fast as they need solutions that make the record usable. So in the last couple of years, our revenue is starting to bump up considerably. The one thing that I didn't mention to me is the ramp going into 2019, right? It's a considerable ramp to go from 2.2 million to 9.9. Well, the fact is the quality of the pipeline is now ramping up to get us to where we need in 2019. Because the market is finally accepting that they're not going to get everything they need from their one core vendor. And it's not just Cerner, it's also Epic, and it's other vendors across the system. So the market's finally opening up. We might have been a little too early in the initial part, but now we're hitting on all gears and strides.
So to follow up on that a little bit,
Sure.
Who do you actually sell into in the hospital, and how do you get the doctors up to speed to use the system?
Yeah, two answers. So number one, the executive suite. We're selling very strategically to the executives who own the budget, right? It's moving from a discretionary spend, hey, we'd like to have this, to us solving very critical problems, earning a seat at the executive table, solving those problems, and then expanding more across where they spend their money. So always the executive suite, but we also need that groundswell from the clinicians, the doctors who are actually using it. So we take a multi-pronged approach because many of us are clinicians. I'm a clinician myself. So making sure we get the physicians and doctors and nurses and others on board, at the same time we're selling to the executives, CIO, CMIO, CEO, all of the C-suite.
Kind of just following up on that, it sounds like a classic enterprise sale, right? Selling at the enterprise
Sure
suite.
is.
If I'm doing the math right, the million divided by 130 hospitals is about $8K per customer. And so I'm thinking about the ACV and the sales cost to do it. They seem a little bit. How are you going to close that gap? Because it sounds like you're going to need to drive a lot more revenue per customer in order to.
All right, so two ways. So number one, increasing the amount of products we bring into the solutions, increasing the price. Right, as I said, we're renewing contracts at dramatic multiples that I've never seen, which tells me that they're sticky. And I don't believe we've hit top yet, quite honestly, in terms of the pricing. Number two, we're closing the large enterprise deals. So with some of the clients you see, we may have one or two of their facilities, and then bumping that up to the strategic level, like Ascension, for instance, right? Consuming all 114 hospitals, so getting those really strategic deals. And I'm a big elephant hunter. The sales VP we just brought on board, we're big elephant hunters because we know we can produce the revenue.
I understand that you're a lot more nimble because of your size, but if you think about Epic and Cerner already having established relationships, what's keeping them potentially from coming into the marketplace and offering, what you're offering today?
So good question. So as I mentioned, they innovate very slowly and they deliver very slowly, right? It's certainly accepted in the marketplace. The fact is we've been building content and workflows special to what the physicians and the clinicians need for the last decade. So Cerner clients have been coming to us, for example, to say, look, we've tried it, it's not working, we're going to keep Cerner, but we really need to get the value of the electronic health record, so they come to us. And they're not going to compete in that way because they've got bigger fish to fry, quite honestly. The challenge with Epic is that it's a closed model. But Epic clients are now saying, look, we're also facing challenges with Epic, and we need to innovate faster, and Epic's not delivering. So how can we bring solutions that are embedded in Epic and in the workflow that really deliver to the value that Epic initially promised? So the Epic market will also be forced to open.
So five years from now, you're growing, tripling revenue, growing tremendously. Who's going to buy you other than Cerner or Epic? How do you get others interested?
So if you think about organizations, and I love to use Ascension, they have both Epic and Cerner across 114 facilities. One of their biggest challenges is reducing the variability of care. So wherever you go in their system, their docs are providing the same quality of care regardless of where they are. That's challenging to do when you're using two distinct electronic health records. Put TransformativeMed as the skin. No matter where you go, you're using the same workflows in the same hospitals. And if you think about just the sheer amount of data that we consume and the fact that it's correct data, right? So like artificial intelligence and machine learning, garbage in, garbage out, this is good data that we can actually use to produce outcome. So some of the bigger vendors like IBM Watson, right? Amazon 1492, content companies like Wolters Kluwer. The sky's the world, quite honestly, in healthcare.
All right, cool. Thanks, Doug. Let's see if
Yep,
anyone in the audience has questions. We have some hands up right here, please.
Hey, Dave Young and Todd, Willamette Valley Capital. So I think it's a kind of an axiom that when the hospitals use your system, that results in better outcomes for the patients. But what are some of the downstream outcomes for the hospitals? Are they making more money? Do they have less malpractice suits, less hospital-acquired infections? Like, what are the benefits to the hospital?
So firstly, for their clinicians, increase productivity and efficiency. If you slow a doctor down in his or her process by having to spend too much time interacting with the computer to get information, they see less patients, right? Believe it or not, doctors aren't too happy with using the EHR, so making sure clinicians are satisfied is hugely important today, especially as healthcare systems compete. From a cost perspective, part of the challenge in healthcare that we all know is billing, right? So organizations need to pull in a lot of money and make sure that they're billing insurance companies correctly. And a lot of that responsibility falls on the doctor's shoulders, and there's an army of people downwind that try to fix it all. So if you think about just the sheer amount of resources required to get billing right, the more you can affect it up front as far as the process, then the more revenue predictability these organizations have. So for me, right, all of these things moving up to the critical world comes down to producing revenue for the organization, right? Hugely important. And number two, making sure their clinicians are actually practicing medicine and not having to be tied to a computer.
Do you have some preliminary data or results on how you've been able to measure those improvements?
Absolutely. In time efficiencies, we have a number of published studies that have come out of some of our organization in terms of time saved, for instance, right? And how that rolls back into seeing more patients.
Yeah, okay, so just quantifiable already.
Absolutely.
Super. Other questions? Let's go right here with the blue cube, and then we'll...
Hi, I'm Laura Haddock. This sounds like a great communication tool for everyone along the ladder, especially if you're going to incorporate messaging. In 2019, for everyone from nurse assistants to dietitians, surgeons, all the way over to mental health experts. So who can use this besides physicians? And how are you going to address patient privacy and HIPAA?
So remember, these are in the four walls of the hospital, right? So this is a B2B play. And in terms of messaging today, you asked, so the vendors that are in the marketplace today are very single, right? They sit outside of the workflow. So when a doctor or nurses gets a message, typically it doesn't fit into their entire patient list because we manage our own list, right? So they get the message and then they somehow have to react to it. And it's not in the workflow, and oftentimes it's part of another system. So the second generation products that we're embedded into the solutions, right? A doctor can say, look, I need a lab value based on something I need to know about you. And when I get that, I need to react to it, which means I need to place an order, right? I need to hand it off to someone. The more it's part of the intuitive way that I do business as a doctor or as a nurse, right? Then the more efficient I am and the more reactive I can be to make sure I'm delivering proper care to you. Our clients are getting really excited about now bringing these second generation products because we're embedded in the workflow, and it makes a big difference in terms of some of the ROI I've just said.
Thanks.
Does that answer your question? Good.
Right here with the orange cube, please.
Hey, my name is Hussein. So you're trying to compete with like Epic and Serum, and I know that your platform is like getting more updated and improved over those. But how do you feel about hospitals and like doctors who are already used to those systems to change to your systems?
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of that question. I'm not, my hearing is going. I think you can tell the gray hair.
Maybe you could
Like
repeat the
how,
last part
how
again.
can like hospitals change from those you're competing to your like product?
So we would never want a hospital to rip and replace their system. They need the data repositories, right? They need these electronic health records. The challenge is they've not been extremely well used or usable because they're not intuitive to how clinicians practice medicine, right? For us, we bring our solutions in that actually make the electronic health record usable for the clinicians who need it. And it's as easy as that.
Thank you.
All right, one last quick burning question, if any. Okay, well, this is fantastic. It has the opportunity to really improve the quality of care. What's that? You got a gator, please.
Aren't you
You're
going to get
allowed.
me off the stage?
So your metrics are all based around beds?
Yep.
But does this work in just clinics and doctors' offices and everywhere else too?
We're solely focused on the inpatient today, so the four
Okay.
walls of the hospital, because quite honestly, there's a lot of cash there and there's very little competition.
Oh, great. That's good.
Staying focused. Staying focused for now, and it really does seem to have the opportunity to improve the quality of care for patients. And reminds me, when I was a kid, I used to play doctor, and I'm sure some of you did too. And when I played doctor, that meant I would keep my friends waiting for 3 hours. So this is going to make improvements. So let's give a big hand to Doug.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for presenting.
Thank you.
All right, then thank you, panelists, and maybe just a few insights or perspectives. You know, one question is, we have 5 software-centric companies presenting today. Some refer to themselves as tools, some as platforms, and maybe Eric, given your experience, how would you define the difference between a software platform and a software tool?
Let's see, I think when you think about a tool is solving kind of one discrete business problem for an organization. And when I think about a platform, I think you've created a way that other companies, partners, even your customers can extend that and are adding in additional functionality. So I kind of think of it pretty simplistically in terms of, you know, is it a purpose-built to solve a problem, or is it something that can be extendable and there can be a broader ecosystem?
Platform involves others participating on the platform.
In that, yeah.
Okay, good.
It's trendy to call everything a platform these days.
I know,
so.
it's easy, but it's probably not technically correct.
Yeah.
So of the companies, which do you think can scale the most quickly? Which do you think has the best chance to grow quick?
Are we in agreement on that, or?
Yeah, we had a couple. I think there's been, well, and we haven't regrouped with the other couple. But I think one that stood out for us was Stabilitas, and I think if I'm saying it right. And I think what was interesting there, and Pam and I were talking about this, is just it seemed like all of the dimensions of the business were presented in a very clean and effective way that built a lot of confidence in terms of, in a short period of time, being able to kind of what they've done, high confidence that that's going to continue. I'm sure they'll run into their share of roadmap, bumps in the road and things like that, but there was high confidence that they would kind of jump over. I don't know, do you want to add anything to that?
I agree, and as you said when he was on stage, the fact that they have already have been tracking those metrics and have a real clear understanding about how they're going to scale, I think was pretty impressive.
And Talkoot as well had some phenomenal brands. And I think one of the things that from my experience with JAMA, once you can get in, you figure out how to penetrate the enterprise. There's a lot of money there, so you can go on that as well. I don't know what else.
No, I think you captured it. Yeah.
If you had $1 million in your pocket today and you had to invest in one of the 5, do you have a choice of what you would do?
Maybe we divide it up.
Yeah,
spread our options.
I forgot my checkbook.
Forgot your checkbook. Great. Any other perspectives or thoughts after hearing these wonderful presentations?
Hats off to everyone that it's so nice for me to sit over here and critique instead of, be up there and be critiqued. So, there's so much work that goes into preparing. The quality of the presentations I thought was fantastic across the board. Really interesting companies. It amazes me that, now that entrepreneurship is so popular, there's still, every one of these is like solving a business problem. Like there's so many problems out there. Anyway, it's fascinating. So hats off to the entrepreneurs. That's great.
And I think that, being passionate about the problem that they're trying to solve is really what's critical. Not just being, completely in love with what the product is, but really understanding what the consumer needs are, continues to be really important.
Definitely came through. Super. So, thank you. And during the break, I was really inspired by the presentation, so I was actually inspired to write some poetry. In honor of our panelists who came down from Portland to be here today and share their insights and perspectives, through 5 great presentations, they kept their attention span. Their questions were let me start off again. Our investor panelists came all the way from Portland. Through 5 great presentations, they kept their attention span. Their questions were insightful, their perspectives delightful. Please join me in thanking Eric and Pam.